A Practical Guide to Self-Respect. Written and published by Echo Elevate. Introduction. Self-respect changes everything. It shapes how you speak to yourself. It guides the choices you make, and it determines what you accept from the world around you. Many people spend years trying to build confidence, success, or happiness, but without self-respect, those things never feel stable. They rise quickly, and they fall just as fast. This book begins with a simple truth. How you treat yourself becomes the standard for how others treat you. A Practical Guide to Self-Respect is not about becoming perfect. It is not about proving your worth, and it is not about changing who you are to please others. This book is about learning how to stand firmly in who you already are. Inside these chapters, you will learn what self-respect truly means. You will recognize the habits that quietly weaken it, and you will discover practical ways to rebuild it, one decision at a time. This is a guide for everyday life, for relationships, for work, for moments when you feel unsure, overlooked, or stretched thin. You will learn how to set boundaries without guilt, how to speak to yourself with honesty and strength, and how to make choices that align with your values, even when it feels uncomfortable. This is not a book to rush through. It is a book to listen to slowly, to reflect on, and to return to when life challenges your sense of worth. As you listen, you may hear ideas that feel familiar. You may also hear truths that feel uncomfortable. Both are part of growth. Self-respect is not loud. It does not demand attention. It is quiet, steady, and deeply powerful. If you are ready to build a stronger relationship with yourself, then this journey begins now. Chapter 1. What self-respect really means. Self-respect is the foundation of a stable life. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It works quietly in the background of every decision you make. Many people confuse self-respect with confidence. Others mistake it for pride or stubbornness. Some believe it is about demanding attention or control. In reality, self-respect is none of these things. Self-respect is how you treat yourself when no one is watching. It is the standard you hold when applause is absent. It is the line you refuse to cross, even when crossing it would be easier. Imagine two people with the same talent and opportunity. One constantly doubts their worth. The other moves with calm certainty. The difference is not ability. The difference is self-respect. Self-respect begins with self-recognition. It means acknowledging your value without needing permission. It means understanding that your time, energy, and dignity matter. This does not mean you believe you are better than others. It means you believe you are not less than others. There is a quiet balance in that understanding. Consider a simple example from daily life. Someone makes a joke at your expense. You laugh along even though it stings. Later you feel uneasy and slightly resentful. That feeling is your self-respect asking for attention. Self-respect does not always demand confrontation. Sometimes it asks for honesty. Sometimes it asks for distance. And sometimes it asks you to stop betraying yourself for comfort. Many people grow up learning how to please. They learn how to fit in. They learn how to avoid conflict. Along the way, they often forget how to respect themselves. Self-respect is not selfishness. Selfishness takes without regard. Self-respect sets limits with care. One drains relationships. The other protects them. When you respect yourself, you no longer chase validation. You listen, but you do not beg. You consider opinions, but you do not surrender your identity. Think about how you keep promises to others. You show up on time. You follow through. You feel uncomfortable when you disappoint them. Self-respect means offering that same reliability to yourself. It means honoring your own commitments. It means not abandoning yourself when things become difficult. There is a story that illustrates this well. A man stayed in a job that drained him for years. He was underpaid and overlooked. He told himself he should be grateful. Every morning felt heavier than the last. Nothing changed until one quiet moment. He realized his exhaustion was not weakness. It was a signal. His self-respect was asking him to act. He did not quit overnight. He prepared. He learned. He applied elsewhere. And when he left, he did so calmly. That was self-respect in action. Not dramatic. Not reckless. Just clear and firm. Self-respect often shows up as patience. It allows you to wait rather than settle. It allows you to walk away rather than argue endlessly. It also shows up as accountability. When you respect yourself, you own your mistakes. You do not hide behind excuses. You learn and adjust. This is important to understand. Self-respect does not mean you never fail. It means failure does not define your worth. You correct behavior without attacking your identity. Another example appears in relationships. A person stays where they are constantly dismissed. They hope love will improve things. They keep lowering expectations. Self-respect asks a hard question. Is this connection honoring who I am becoming? If the answer is no, action must follow. That action is not always leaving immediately. Sometimes it is speaking honestly. Sometimes it is setting boundaries. Sometimes it is choosing silence and clarity. Self-respect grows through small choices. You go to sleep when your body needs rest. You stop explaining yourself to people who refuse to listen. You say no when yes would cost your peace. These actions may seem small. Over time, they shape identity. They teach your mind how you deserve to be treated. One of the most powerful aspects of self-respect is consistency. You behave the same way in private as you do in public. Your values do not shift based on who is present. This creates inner stability. You no longer feel divided. You feel aligned. Self-respect is also deeply practical. It affects how you manage money. It affects how you use time. It affects how you speak to yourself after a long day. Listen closely to your inner dialogue. Is it supportive or cruel? Is it patient or dismissive? The way you speak to yourself becomes your emotional environment. Self-respect cleans that space. It removes constant self-attack. It replaces it with honest guidance. This chapter is not asking you to change everything today. It is asking you to notice, to observe moments where you abandon yourself, and to pause before repeating them. Self-respect begins with awareness. It deepens through action, and it strengthens with repetition. As you continue through this book, remember this: self-respect is not something you wait to feel. It is something you practice. And with each practice, you build a life that feels steady from the inside out. Chapter 2. Why self-respect shapes every area of life. Self-respect does not stay in one corner of your life. It spreads into everything you do. It quietly influences your choices, habits, and direction. Many people try to improve one area at a time. They focus on career, or relationships, or confidence. They often miss the deeper connection between all of them. Self-respect is that connection. When you respect yourself, your decisions change. Not because someone is watching, but because you are. Think about how you decide what to tolerate, what you allow, what you ignore. These choices shape your daily experience. Without self-respect, life becomes reactive. You respond to pressure. You adjust to expectations. You drift rather than choose. With self-respect, life becomes intentional. You pause before agreeing. You consider long-term impact. You act with clarity. Let us start with personal decisions. What you eat, how you rest, how you spend your time. A person with self-respect listens to signals. They notice exhaustion. They notice stress. They do not constantly push past limits to prove worth. This does not mean laziness. It means balance. It means understanding that care is not weakness. Now consider relationships. Every relationship mirrors how you treat yourself. If you accept disrespect internally, you will tolerate it externally. A person who doubts their value often stays silent. They avoid conflict. They hope things will improve on their own. Self-respect changes that pattern. It creates healthy discomfort. It asks for honesty instead of avoidance. This honesty protects connection. It prevents resentment from building quietly. It allows trust to grow. Work life is also shaped by self-respect. Not just the job you choose, but how you show up. People with low self-respect often overextend. They say yes to everything. They fear being replaced or rejected. People with self-respect still work hard, but they know their limits. They value quality over exhaustion. They speak clearly. They set standards. They do not confuse self-worth with constant availability. Self-respect also affects confidence. Not surface confidence, but grounded confidence. Surface confidence seeks approval. It performs. It compares. It reacts strongly to praise or criticism. Grounded confidence comes from alignment. You trust yourself because your actions match your values. You are steady because you are consistent. This steadiness changes how you handle pressure. You no longer panic at disagreement. You no longer collapse under judgment. Let us look at a real example. A woman constantly doubted her decisions. She asked everyone for advice. She changed direction often. Her life felt scattered. Not because she lacked ability, but because she lacked self-respect. When she began trusting her judgment, things shifted. She still listened to others, but she chose for herself. Her confidence grew quietly. Her stress decreased. Her life felt more focused. Self-respect also shapes emotional health. It determines how you process feelings. Without self-respect, emotions are suppressed. They are ignored or dismissed. They return later as frustration or burnout. With self-respect, emotions are acknowledged, not indulged, not judged, simply understood. This allows healing instead of avoidance. Another area influenced by self-respect is discipline. People often think discipline comes from pressure. In truth, it comes from care. You follow routines when you believe you matter. You prepare when you value your future. You show up because you respect your potential. Self-respect turns effort into consistency, not punishment, not force. It also affects how you handle failure. Without self-respect, failure feels personal. It attacks identity. It creates shame. With self-respect, failure becomes information. You adjust. You learn. You continue. This difference determines growth. Self-respect even shapes your environment. The people you keep around you. The spaces you spend time in. The conversations you allow. You begin to remove what drains you. Not with anger, but with clarity. You choose environments that support growth. You seek calm over chaos. You protect focus. Some changes may feel uncomfortable at first. Distance may replace familiarity. Silence may replace noise. This discomfort is temporary. Alignment is lasting. It is important to understand one thing. Self-respect does not guarantee ease. It guarantees direction. Life will still challenge you, but you will face it without abandoning yourself. This chapter is not about perfection. It is about cause and effect. When self-respect is strong, life feels manageable. When it is weak, everything feels heavier. Every chapter that follows will build on this truth. Self-respect is not an isolated trait. It is the root system of a meaningful life. Say you move forward, notice where your life feels strained. That tension is information. It often points to a lack of self-respect. And where self-respect grows, clarity follows, strength follows, and life begins to feel more grounded and intentional. Chapter 3. The Signs of Low Self-Respect. Low self-respect rarely announces itself clearly. It does not arrive as a single dramatic problem. It shows up quietly, through patterns that feel normal over time. Many people live with low self-respect without realizing it. They assume this is just how life feels. They believe the constant tension is normal. This chapter is about recognition, because you cannot change what you do not see. One of the most common signs of low self-respect is people-pleasing. You say yes when you want to say no. You agree to things that drain you. You avoid honesty to keep the peace. At first, this feels kind and flexible. Over time, it becomes exhausting. Resentment grows quietly beneath the surface. People-pleasing is not about being nice. It is about fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of disappointment. Fear of being seen as difficult. Another sign is constant self-doubt. You question your decisions even after making them. You replay conversations in your head. You assume you said the wrong thing. This habit slowly weakens trust in yourself. You stop listening to your own judgment. You rely more on external approval. Low self-respect also appears as over-apologizing. You apologize for existing, for taking up space, for having needs. You say sorry, even when nothing is wrong. This trains others to see you as unsure. More importantly, it trains you to feel small. Another sign is staying too long in unhealthy situations. This can be a job, a relationship, or a friendship. You tell yourself it will improve. You minimize the discomfort. You adjust your standards downward. Low self-respect whispers that leaving would mean failure, that asking for better is selfish, that tolerating pain is strength. In reality, self-respect recognizes when enough is enough. Low self-respect also affects how you speak to yourself. Your inner voice becomes harsh, critical, unforgiving. You focus on flaws. You dismiss progress. You compare constantly. This internal environment becomes hostile, and no one thrives in a hostile environment. Another sign is avoiding boundaries. You know something feels wrong, but you do nothing. You allow interruptions. You accept disrespect. You let others decide for you. Boundaries feel uncomfortable when self-respect is low. They feel risky. They feel like rejection. So instead, you absorb discomfort silently. Low self-respect can also show up as overworking. You push beyond healthy limits. You ignore rest. You tie worth to productivity. You feel guilty when you stop. You feel anxious when you slow down. This is not ambition. It is self-neglect disguised as discipline. There is also a pattern of seeking validation. You need praise to feel steady. You feel unsettled without feedback. Compliments bring relief. Criticism feels devastating. This creates emotional instability. Your sense of worth rises and falls with opinions. Low self-respect makes life feel fragile. Another subtle sign is avoiding difficult conversations. You know something needs to be said, but you delay. You hope clarity will appear on its own. You hope others will change without discussion. Avoidance feels safer in the moment, but it creates confusion and distance. Low self-respect chooses short-term comfort over long-term clarity. Some people express low self-respect through self-sabotage. They procrastinate on important goals. They quit when progress begins. Success feels unfamiliar. Failure feels familiar. This pattern protects the ego in the short term, but it blocks growth. Low self-respect also appears in how you handle mistakes. You punish yourself harshly. You replay errors repeatedly. Instead of learning, you shame yourself. Instead of correcting behavior, you attack identity. This keeps you stuck. Here is an example that many people recognize. A person agrees to help everyone. They feel needed at first, then overwhelmed. They begin feeling invisible, unappreciated, exhausted. The problem is not generosity. The problem is lack of self-respect. Another example appears in decision-making. You delay choices endlessly. You wait for certainty. You fear choosing wrong. So you choose nothing. Low self-respect believes mistakes are dangerous. High self-respect sees them as part of learning. It is important to understand this clearly. Having these signs does not mean you are broken. It means you adapted. Many of these patterns once kept you safe. They helped you survive. They helped you belong. But survival patterns do not always support growth. This chapter is not meant to judge. It is meant to clarify. As you listen, you may recognize yourself. That recognition is progress. Awareness creates choice. Choice creates change. Low self-respect does not disappear overnight. It fades as new behaviors replace old ones. In the next chapters, you will learn how this shift happens, not through force, but through consistency. For now, simply observe. Notice where you shrink. Notice where you stay silent. Those moments are not failures. They are signals. And every signal is an invitation to grow. Chapter 4. The inner voice that builds or breaks you. There is a voice you hear more than any other. It speaks before you act. It responds after you fail. It stays with you when the world goes quiet. That voice is your inner voice. For many people, this voice is not kind. It points out mistakes quickly. It questions decisions constantly. It rarely offers encouragement. Over time, this voice shapes identity. Not through single statements, but through repetition. The way you speak to yourself becomes the way you experience life. Some people believe self-criticism creates improvement. They think harshness leads to discipline. They believe pressure produces strength. In reality, constant inner attack creates fear. Fear narrows focus. Fear weakens confidence. An inner voice that tears you down does not motivate. It exhausts. Consider a simple moment. You make a small mistake at work. No one notices. But your inner voice reacts immediately. You tell yourself you should know better. You replay the error. You question your competence. That moment passes externally. Internally, it lingers. Now imagine the same moment with a different response. You acknowledge the mistake. You correct it. You move on. The situation is identical. The outcome is not. The difference is not talent. It is self-respect expressed through self-talk. The inner voice is not born harsh. It is learned. It often mirrors past environments. A critical parent. A demanding teacher. A judgmental culture. Over time, external voices become internal ones. You begin speaking to yourself the way others once spoke to you. This voice feels familiar. So it feels true. But familiarity is not accuracy. An important shift happens when you realize something. You are not your thoughts. You are the one hearing them. This creates space, and in that space, choice appears. Self-respect does not mean constant positivity. It means fairness. It means accuracy. It means balance. A respectful inner voice corrects without attacking. It guides without shaming. It supports effort instead of demanding perfection. Think about how you would speak to someone you care about. You would not insult them for trying. You would not call them weak for learning. You would offer direction. You would offer patience. Self-respect asks you to extend that same tone inward. This does not mean ignoring flaws. It means addressing them constructively. For example, instead of saying you always fail, you say this approach did not work. Instead of saying you are lazy, you say you need a clearer plan. These shifts may seem small. They are not. Language shapes emotion. Emotion shapes behavior. Another way the inner voice breaks self-respect is through comparison. You measure your progress against others. You focus on what you lack. Comparison turns growth into pressure. It replaces appreciation with urgency. Your inner voice begins saying you are behind, not enough, late. This creates anxiety instead of motivation. A respectful inner voice focuses on direction, not speed. It asks whether you are moving forward, not whether you are moving faster than someone else. There is also the habit of predicting failure. Before you begin, your inner voice warns you. You might fail. You might look foolish. This voice believes it is protecting you. It thinks avoidance is safety. But avoidance shrinks life. It limits experience. It weakens trust in yourself. A respectful inner voice does not guarantee success. It encourages effort. It says try. It says learn. It says adjust. Another common pattern is replaying the past. Your inner voice reminds you of old mistakes. It brings up moments of embarrassment. These memories feel vivid. they feel current. But they are echoes, not instructions. Self-respect recognizes that growth requires release. You cannot move forward while dragging every past version of yourself. One practical way to shift the inner voice is awareness. Notice the tone. Notice the words. You do not need to argue with every thought. You only need to question the harsh ones. Ask a simple question. Is this helpful? Is this fair? Over time, this practice weakens old patterns. New ones form naturally. Another tool is intentional language. Replace absolutes. Replace labels. Say I am learning. Say I can improve. Say this is temporary. These phrases support effort. They keep the nervous system calm. A calm system learns faster. It adapts better. The goal is not silence. The goal is support. Your inner voice will always speak. The question is how. When it builds you, progress feels possible. When it breaks you, even simple tasks feel heavy. Self-respect begins internally. Before boundaries, before confidence, before action. As you move forward, pay attention to how you speak inwardly. That voice is either training you to trust yourself, or teaching you to doubt yourself. Choose carefully, because the voice you practice becomes the voice you believe. Chapter 5. Setting Boundaries Without Guilt. Boundaries are one of the clearest expressions of self-respect, yet for many people, they feel uncomfortable and heavy. Not because boundaries are wrong, but because guilt has been attached to them. This chapter is about removing that guilt. A boundary is not a wall. It is a line of clarity. It tells others how to treat you. And it tells you what you will no longer accept. Many people believe boundaries push others away. In truth, unclear boundaries create distance. Clear boundaries create stability. Guilt often appears when you begin setting limits. You worry about hurting feelings. You worry about being misunderstood. You worry about being seen as selfish. This guilt does not mean your boundary is wrong. It means your nervous system is adjusting to change. Most people were not taught how to set boundaries. They were taught how to adapt, how to stay agreeable, how to avoid conflict. So when you begin saying no, it feels unfamiliar. Unfamiliar does not mean incorrect. Consider a simple situation. A coworker constantly interrupts your time. You feel frustrated, but stay silent. Each interruption builds resentment. One day you calmly say you need uninterrupted time. Your heart races. You feel uneasy. The boundary is healthy. The discomfort comes from breaking an old pattern. Boundaries often feel rude to people who benefit from your silence. This is important to remember. Setting a boundary does not require explanation. You can be respectful without over-justifying. Clarity is enough. Many people weaken boundaries by apologizing excessively. They say sorry before they speak. They soften their words until the message disappears. Self-respect allows firmness with calmness. You can be kind and clear at the same time. Another common struggle is emotional boundaries. You take responsibility for how others feel. You carry guilt for their reactions. Self-respect separates responsibility. You are responsible for your actions. You are not responsible for managing everyone's emotions. Someone may feel disappointed. Someone may feel uncomfortable. Those feelings belong to them. This does not mean you become careless. It means you stop over-functioning emotionally. Boundaries also apply to time and energy. You cannot be available to everyone at all times. Trying to do so leads to burnout. When you say yes to everything, you say no to yourself. Self-respect teaches you to pause before agreeing, to check in with your capacity, to respond instead of reacting. Another area where guilt appears is family. Expectations can feel heavy. Traditions can feel binding. Setting boundaries with family does not mean rejection. It means redefining connection in a healthier way. You can honor others without abandoning yourself. Boundaries may also trigger fear of conflict. You imagine worst-case reactions. You expect confrontation. Often the reaction is smaller than imagined. And even when it is not, clarity still protects you. Conflict avoided through silence does not disappear. It turns inward. It becomes stress and resentment. Boundaries release that pressure. There is also a boundary with yourself. This is often overlooked. You may overcommit, ignore rest, break promises to yourself. Self-respect asks you to stop crossing your own limits. To listen when your body and mind say enough. One powerful shift is changing how you think about boundaries. They are not punishments. They are guidelines. They protect your energy. They preserve your peace. They support sustainable relationships. A boundary does not need to be dramatic. It can be quiet. It can be consistent. Consistency matters more than intensity. At first, guilt may still appear. That is normal. Guilt fades when boundaries become familiar, and familiarity grows through repetition. Each time you honor a boundary, you teach yourself that your needs matter. Over time, confidence replaces guilt, not because others change, but because you do. Setting boundaries is not about control. It is about alignment. When your actions align with your values, inner tension decreases. As you continue forward, remember this. Boundaries are an act of respect for yourself and for others. They allow relationships to exist without resentment. They allow you to show up without exhaustion. Setting boundaries without guilt is not a personality trait. It is a skill. And like any skill, it strengthens with practice. Chapter 6. Respecting yourself in relationships. Every relationship you enter reflects the relationship you have with yourself, not in obvious ways, but in patterns that repeat quietly. Respecting yourself in relationships is not about control, it is about alignment. It is about showing up honestly, without abandoning who you are. Many people believe love requires sacrifice. They confuse sacrifice with self-erasure. Over time, this confusion creates pain. Healthy relationships do require effort. They do not require self-betrayal. One of the first signs of self-respect in relationships is honesty, not harsh honesty. Clear honesty. You express your needs without apology. You share discomfort without blame. You speak before resentment builds. When self-respect is low, silence feels safer than truth. You hold things in. You hope the other person will notice. Hope replaces communication, and disappointment follows. Respecting yourself means trusting that your feelings matter enough to be voiced. Even if the response is uncertain. Even if the outcome is uncomfortable. Another key element is choice. You choose relationships. You do not cling to them out of fear. Fear-based connection creates imbalance. One person adapts constantly. The other decides everything. Self-respect restores balance. Consider a common situation. You feel unheard in a relationship. You repeat yourself. Nothing changes. Low self-respect stays and shrinks. High self-respect pauses and reassesses. This does not mean leaving immediately. It means observing honestly. It means asking whether effort is mutual. Respecting yourself means noticing patterns, not excuses. One mistake can be forgiven. A repeated pattern deserves attention. Another area where self-respect matters is boundaries. You do not allow consistent disrespect in the name of love. You do not normalize behavior that harms your well-being. Love does not require endurance of emotional pain. Connection does not require loss of dignity. Self-respect asks a clear question. Does this relationship support who I am becoming? If the answer is no, change is needed. This change can take many forms. A conversation, a boundary, or distance. Avoiding change does not preserve love. It erodes it. Respecting yourself also means releasing the need to fix others. You are not responsible for someone else's growth. You can support without rescuing. When you overfunction, you enable stagnation, and you drain yourself. Self-respect allows shared responsibility. Each person owns their part. Another challenge appears in conflict. Many people fear disagreement. They equate it with rejection. So they suppress needs. They smooth over issues. They agree to avoid tension. This creates emotional distance, not closeness. Respecting yourself in conflict means staying present. It means listening without collapsing. It means expressing without attacking. You can disagree and still respect. You can assert without aggression. Tone matters. Timing matters. But silence is not a solution. Self-respect also affects who you are attracted to. You often attract what matches your self-image. When self-respect is low, chaos feels familiar. Inconsistency feels exciting. Uncertainty feels normal. As self-respect grows, calm becomes attractive. Stability feels safe. Clarity feels comforting. This shift may surprise you. You may lose interest in dynamics that once pulled you in. That is growth, not loss. Another important aspect is how you handle being alone. People with low self-respect fear solitude. They stay in relationships to avoid emptiness. Self-respect teaches comfort with your own company. You do not rush connection. You choose it. This choice changes everything. Respecting yourself also means noticing how you feel after interactions. Do you feel drained or supported? Do you feel smaller or more grounded? Your body often knows before your mind admits the truth. Listen to that information. There is a powerful story many people share. They stayed in a relationship that felt wrong. They ignored signals for years. When they finally left, they felt grief and relief. The relief came from returning to themselves. That return is self-respect. It is important to say this clearly. Respecting yourself does not make you cold. It makes you clear. Clarity creates safer relationships. It reduces confusion. It allows real intimacy. You show up as yourself, not as a version designed to be accepted. Self-respect also allows forgiveness, not forced forgiveness, honest forgiveness. You forgive when accountability exists. You forgive when behavior changes. You do not forgive to maintain access to harm. This distinction matters. As you grow in self-respect, some relationships will change. Some will deepen. Some will fade. This is natural. You are not meant to stay the same while expecting everything else to evolve. Respecting yourself in relationships is a daily practice. You check in with your needs. You communicate early. You adjust when necessary. You do not wait until you are exhausted. Remember this. The right relationships do not require you to disappear. They allow you to expand. And when you respect yourself, you create space for relationships that respect you in return. Chapter 7. Self-respect and personal responsibility. Self-respect and personal responsibility are deeply connected. You cannot build one without strengthening the other. Personal responsibility is not about blame. It is about ownership. It is about recognizing where your power begins. Many people misunderstand responsibility. They see it as pressure, as burden, as something heavy. In reality, responsibility is freeing. It returns control to you. When self-respect is low, responsibility feels threatening. You look outward for causes. You focus on circumstances. You wait for conditions to change. This creates a sense of helplessness. Life feels unpredictable. Progress feels slow. Self-respect shifts this perspective. It asks a different question. What part of this is mine to handle? This question is not judgmental. It is grounding. Personal responsibility begins with choice. You may not choose every situation, but you always choose your response. This distinction matters. Consider a common scenario. Someone feels stuck in life. They blame lack of opportunity. They blame others. They blame timing. Some of these factors may be real, but blame alone does not create movement. Self-respect invites a pause. It asks, what can I influence right now? Even in small ways, small ownership creates momentum. Taking responsibility does not mean ignoring hardship. It means refusing to surrender agency. There is strength in saying this is difficult, and there is power in adding this is still mine to respond to. Another area where responsibility matters is emotional reactions. Many people say you made me feel this way. They give control of emotions away. Self-respect reclaims that control. It acknowledges feelings without outsourcing responsibility. Someone may trigger a reaction, but how you process it is yours. This awareness reduces emotional chaos. It creates stability. Personal responsibility also appears in habits. Daily choices compound over time. Sleep, food, movement, focus. Low self-respect ignores these details. It postpones care. It relies on motivation. Self-respect builds systems. It plans. It prepares. It acts even when motivation fades. Responsibility becomes routine, not dramatic, not exhausting. There is also responsibility in communication. Many conflicts grow because people avoid clarity. They expect others to guess. Self-respect encourages directness, not aggression, not accusation, just clarity. You say what you mean. You ask for what you need. You address issues early. This reduces misunderstanding. It builds trust. Another important aspect is responsibility for growth. No one else can grow for you. Advice can guide. Support can help. But action remains personal. Low self-respect waits for permission. It waits for confidence. It waits for certainty. Self-respect moves with imperfect information. It learns through experience. Mistakes are not avoided. They are managed. Responsibility also means accepting consequences. Not with shame, with maturity. When something does not work, you adjust instead of denying. You correct instead of defending. This mindset accelerates learning. There is a story that reflects this shift. A person constantly blamed circumstances for stagnation. Nothing improved. One day they chose a different approach. They stopped asking why things were unfair. They started asking what they could do next. The changes were small at first, but they were consistent. Over time, confidence grew, not from success alone, but from reliability. They learned they could trust themselves to act. That trust is self-respect. Personal responsibility also requires honesty. You cannot grow while lying to yourself. You cannot change what you refuse to admit. Self-respect allows truth without self-attack. It separates behavior from identity. You can say this choice was unhelpful, without saying I am unworthy. This separation protects dignity, while enabling growth. Another overlooked area is responsibility for time. Time is limited. How you spend it reflects what you value. Low self-respect wastes time unconsciously. It avoids structure. It drifts. Self-respect plans with intention. It prioritizes. It protects focus. This does not mean rigidity. It means awareness. You choose where your attention goes. Responsibility also includes letting go of what is not yours. You cannot control others. You cannot carry every outcome. Self-respect knows when to step back. It releases what it cannot change. This balance prevents burnout. Taking responsibility does not make life perfect. It makes it workable. You stop waiting to be saved. You stop expecting clarity to arrive fully formed. You build clarity through action. As this chapter closes, remember this: personal responsibility is not punishment. It is partnership with yourself. You show up. You follow through. You adjust when needed. Each responsible choice strengthens trust. Each act of ownership reinforces self-respect. Over time, this creates a quiet confidence, not based on control, but on consistency. You know you will handle what comes, not because it will be easy, but because you respect yourself enough to try. Chapter 8. Healing the habits that undermine you. Not all harm is loud. Some of it happens through habits that repeat quietly. These habits do not appear overnight. They form slowly, often without awareness. Many people blame themselves for these patterns. They call them weaknesses. They judge them harshly. This chapter takes a different approach. It focuses on understanding before correction. Habits that undermine you usually began as protection. They helped you cope. They reduced discomfort at one time. What once helped may now limit you. One common undermining habit is avoidance. You delay tasks that feel uncomfortable. You postpone decisions. You distract yourself. Avoidance offers short-term relief. Long-term, it creates anxiety. Each delay sends a message. You cannot handle this. Over time, confidence erodes. Healing avoidance starts with honesty. Notice what you avoid. Notice when avoid. Avoidance often hides fear. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear of effort. Self-respect responds with compassion. Not pressure. Not shame. Another habit is self-sabotage. You start strong, then pull back. Progress triggers discomfort. Success feels unfamiliar, so you retreat. This pattern protects identity. If you never finish, you never fail, but it also blocks growth. Healing self-sabotage requires safety. You must feel safe to succeed. Self-respect creates that safety. Perfectionism is another undermining habit. You wait for the perfect moment. You demand flawless execution. Perfectionism delays action. It increases stress. It hides fear behind high standards. Self-respect values progress over perfection. It allows imperfect steps. It understands learning requires movement. Another habit that undermines self-respect is negative self-talk. You repeat the same critical phrases. They feel automatic. These phrases shape emotion. Emotion shapes behavior. Changing this habit starts with awareness. Listen to your inner language. Notice tone. Replace cruelty with clarity. Correction does not require insult. Overcommitting is also common. You take on too much. You say yes too quickly. This creates exhaustion. It reduces quality. It builds resentment. Overcommitting often comes from fear. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of missing opportunity. Self-respect introduces pause. You consider capacity. You respond intentionally. Another undermining habit is neglecting rest. You push through fatigue. You ignore signals. Rest feels unproductive, so you avoid it. This weakens focus. It lowers resilience. Rest is not a reward. It is maintenance. Self-respect treats energy as valuable. Some habits involve emotional suppression. You ignore feelings. You minimize them. Unprocessed emotions do not disappear. They resurface as tension or burnout. Healing requires acknowledgement. You allow emotions without judgment. You process them calmly. There is also the habit of comparison. You measure yourself constantly. You track others' progress. Comparison distorts perspective. It removes context. It creates pressure. Self-respect focuses inward. It measures growth against values, not against others. One powerful story illustrates this. A person felt stuck for years. They blamed lack of motivation. In reality, their habits were draining them. Poor sleep, overcommitment, harsh self-talk. When they addressed these habits, energy returned. Clarity followed. Progress became possible. Healing habits is not about force. It is about alignment. You replace harmful habits with supportive ones. Slowly, consistently, start small. Change one habit at a time. Build trust through follow-through. Self-respect grows with each kept promise. When a habit slips, respond calmly. Notice the pattern. Adjust without punishment. Punishment creates resistance. Understanding creates change. It is important to release the idea of instant transformation. Habits change through repetition, not through intensity. Your nervous system needs consistency, not pressure. Healing undermining habits is an act of respect. It says you are worth care. It says growth matters. As you move forward, observe your patterns, not to criticize, to understand. Each habit carries information. Listen to it, and remember this. You do not heal by becoming someone else. You heal by supporting who you already are. Chapter 9. Discipline as an act of self-respect. Discipline is often misunderstood. Many people associate it with force, with pressure, with punishment. In reality, discipline is one of the clearest forms of self-respect. Discipline is not about being harsh with yourself. It is about being reliable. It is about showing up for your own life. When self-respect is low, discipline feels heavy. You rely on motivation. You wait to feel ready. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline stays. Self-respect understands this difference. Think about how you treat someone you care about. You encourage consistency. You support healthy routines. You do not wait for perfect moods. Discipline applies that same care inward. A disciplined person is not rigid. They are intentional. They choose actions that support long-term well-being. This choice happens daily, in small moments, often unnoticed. Waking up when you said you would. Completing a task even when it feels dull. Stopping when rest is needed. These are not dramatic acts. They are quiet agreements kept with yourself. Each time you follow through, trust grows. Each broken promise weakens it. Discipline builds self-trust, and self-trust strengthens self-respect. Many people avoid discipline because they fear restriction. They believe it will remove freedom. The opposite is true. Discipline creates freedom. Freedom from chaos. Freedom from constant decision fatigue. When habits are stable, energy is protected. Consider a simple example. Someone wants to improve their health. They wait for motivation to exercise. Weeks pass. Another person chooses a small routine. 10 minutes a day. No negotiation. The second person builds momentum, not through intensity, through consistency. That consistency is self-respect in action. Discipline also shapes identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through. This identity reinforces behavior. You no longer ask if you should act. You act because that is who you are becoming. Self-respect removes drama from discipline. It does not require perfection. It allows flexibility. Missing one day does not erase progress. Quitting does. A respectful approach corrects gently. It returns to routine without punishment. Discipline fueled by self-respect is sustainable. Discipline fueled by self-criticism is not. Another important aspect is choosing priorities. You cannot be disciplined about everything. Trying to do so creates burnout. Self-respect helps you choose what matters most. You focus effort where it counts. This focus reduces guilt. It increases clarity. Discipline also includes knowing when to stop. Rest is part of discipline. Recovery is part of progress. Ignoring limits is not strength. It is avoidance of listening. Self-respect listens. There is a story that reflects this well. A person worked endlessly to prove value. They believed discipline meant never resting. Eventually they burned out. Their productivity collapsed. When they rebuilt their routine, they included rest. Their energy returned. Their focus improved. That balance was discipline rooted in self-respect. Discipline also protects you from impulsive choices. It creates pause. It creates space between urge and action. In that space, values guide decisions. You do not eat, spend, or react purely from emotion. You respond with intention. This stability strengthens confidence. Self-respect does not demand extreme routines. It prefers realistic ones. Small habits practiced daily outperform. Intense efforts practiced rarely. 10 minutes of focus. One honest conversation. One healthy choice. These compound. Discipline is not about becoming someone new overnight. It is about becoming more consistent with who you want to be. When discipline is aligned with self-respect, it feels supportive, not oppressive. You do not force yourself forward. You guide yourself forward. As you move through your days, notice this. Each disciplined choice sends a message. You matter enough to care. Over time, that message becomes belief, and belief becomes behavior. Discipline practiced this way is not control, it is commitment. A commitment to your future. A commitment to your values. A commitment to yourself. Chapter 10. Handling criticism without losing yourself. Criticism is unavoidable. No matter how carefully you live, opinions will come. Some criticism is helpful. Some is simply noise. The challenge is not avoiding criticism. The challenge is responding without losing yourself. When self-respect is low, criticism feels dangerous. It attacks identity. It triggers defensiveness or collapse. You either fight or you withdraw. Neither response creates clarity. Self-respect creates a third option. It creates steadiness. Handling criticism well begins with separation. You separate feedback from identity. You listen without merging the two. A comment about behavior is not a verdict on worth. This distinction changes everything. Consider a common experience. Someone points out a mistake. Your body reacts before your mind responds. Tension rises. Thoughts race. This reaction is human. Self-respect does not eliminate it. It manages it. The first step is pause. You do not need to respond immediately. You allow space. In that pause, emotion settles. Clarity follows. Next comes evaluation. Is the criticism specific? Is it useful? Is it respectful? Not all criticism deserves equal attention. Constructive criticism offers information. It points to improvement. It focuses on action. Destructive criticism attacks character. It shames. It generalizes. Self-respect listens to one and releases the other. Another important factor is who the criticism comes from. Not every opinion carries weight. Not every voice deserves influence. Feedback from someone informed and respectful is valuable. Noise from insecurity or projection is not. Self-respect chooses discernment over reactivity. There is also the habit of over-identifying with feedback. You replay comments repeatedly. You let them shape your mood. This gives criticism too much power. Self-respect limits exposure. You consider the message once. You take what helps. You let go of the rest. Handling criticism also requires honesty. Sometimes feedback is accurate. Ignoring it blocks growth. Self-respect allows acknowledgement without self-attack. You can say this needs improvement without saying I am a failure. This mindset turns criticism into guidance. Another common challenge is public criticism. Being corrected in front of others can feel humiliating. Self-respect grounds you internally. You focus on learning, not on image. Image fades. Growth lasts. Responding calmly in these moments builds credibility, not perfection. Self-respect also affects how you seek feedback. You ask intentionally. You invite improvement. When feedback is chosen, it feels empowering instead of threatening. This shift reduces fear. There is a story that illustrates this. A person avoided feedback for years. They feared judgment. When they finally began asking for input, they improved faster than expected. Their confidence increased. The fear was not feedback itself. It was lack of self-respect. Criticism also tests boundaries. Some people use criticism to control. They disguise judgment as honesty. Self-respect recognizes this pattern. It disengages without hostility. You do not need to defend yourself constantly. Silence can be a boundary. Handling criticism does not mean pleasing everyone. It means staying aligned with your values. If criticism asks you to abandon integrity, self-respect declines. Another important skill is self-validation. When you validate yourself, criticism loses intensity. You know your effort. You know your intent. External opinions no longer define you. This does not make you closed. It makes you grounded. Over time, handling criticism becomes easier. Not because people stop judging, but because you stop handing over control. Self-respect creates a stable core. Feedback passes through. It does not shake the foundation. As you continue forward, remember this. Criticism is information, not identity. You can learn without shrinking. You can adjust without abandoning yourself. Handling criticism well is not about being unaffected. It is about being anchored. And when you are anchored in self-respect, no opinion has the power to erase who you are. Chapter 11. Self-respect in work and purpose. Work occupies a large part of life, not just in hours, but in identity. How you work often reflects how you see yourself, what you tolerate, what you strive for, what you accept as normal. Self-respect shapes all of it. Many people link work only to survival. They focus on income, on security, on obligation. These things matter. But work is also an expression of values. When self-respect is low, work becomes a place of overcompensation. You work harder to feel worthy. You stay silent to avoid conflict. You accept conditions that drain you. You confuse endurance with professionalism. Self-respect changes that relationship. It does not mean quitting everything that feels hard. It means showing up with integrity. Self-respect at work begins with standards. Not perfection. Standards. You decide how you will show up, how you will communicate, how you will treat others. These standards guide behavior, even when pressure rises. A person with self-respect does not cut corners to please. They do not sacrifice values for approval. They do not perform integrity only when watched. They work honestly, even when no one is checking. This builds quiet confidence. Another important area is boundaries at work. Many people fear setting limits professionally. They worry about appearing uncommitted. So they overextend. They answer messages at all hours. They accept unrealistic demands. Over time, resentment grows. Energy fades. Focus suffers. Self-respect recognizes that sustainability matters. You can be dedicated without being depleted. Clear boundaries protect quality. They protect health. They protect long-term contribution. Self-respect also influences how you receive recognition. Some people downplay achievements. They deflect praise. They feel uncomfortable being seen. Others tie self-worth entirely to results. Praise becomes fuel. Criticism becomes threat. Self-respect finds balance. You acknowledge effort. You appreciate results. You do not depend on constant validation. You know what you contributed. Purpose is another key element. Purpose does not always mean passion. It means meaning. When self-respect is present, you seek work that aligns with your values. Or you bring values into the work you have. You look for contribution, not just compensation. This does not mean every job must feel inspiring. It means you respect yourself enough to care about direction. A lack of purpose often shows up as disengagement. You feel numb. You feel restless. Self-respect listens to these signals. It asks what needs adjustment. Sometimes the answer is growth. Sometimes it is change. Sometimes it is redefining expectations. Ignoring these signals leads to stagnation. There is a story that illustrates this well. A person stayed in a role that paid well, but felt empty. They ignored discomfort for years. They told themselves it was practical. Eventually, burnout followed. When they reassessed their values, they did not quit impulsively. They planned. They shifted toward work that felt aligned. Not perfect, but meaningful. That shift restored energy. Self-respect also affects how you handle ambition. Ambition without self-respect becomes obsession. You chase titles. You chase comparison. Ambition with self-respect becomes direction. You set goals. You pace yourself. You grow without losing balance. Another important aspect is how you handle mistakes at work. Low self-respect leads to hiding errors. You fear judgment. You avoid accountability. This creates more problems. Self-respect allows ownership. You acknowledge mistakes early. You correct them. This builds trust. People respect reliability more than perfection. Self-respect also influences leadership. Whether you manage others or not, you lead through example, through consistency, through fairness. You do not demand what you do not practice. Even without a title, self-respect creates influence. There is also the issue of comparison at work. You watch others advance. You question your progress. Comparison creates pressure. It distracts from purpose. Self-respect refocuses attention. You measure progress against values, not against timelines that are not yours. This reduces anxiety. It increases clarity. Work can challenge self-respect daily. Deadlines, feedback, expectations. Self-respect acts as an anchor. You do your best. You learn. You adjust. You do not lose yourself in the process. Purpose evolves over time. What mattered once may shift. This is natural. Self-respect allows reassessment. It gives permission to grow. You are not required to stay aligned with past versions of yourself. As this chapter closes, remember this. Work is something you do. It is not who you are. Purpose guides work. Self-respect protects purpose. When you respect yourself, you work with clarity. You choose direction consciously. You contribute without disappearing. And over time, that alignment creates a life that feels honest, not just productive. Chapter 12. Rebuilding self-respect after failure. Failure has a way of shaking identity. It makes people question who they are. It blurs the line between a mistake and the self. For many, failure feels final. It feels personal. It feels heavy. This chapter is about separating truth from interpretation. Failure is an event. It is not a definition. When self-respect is low, failure becomes a verdict. You replay it. You relive it. You allow it to shape how you see yourself. Self-respect creates distance. It allows reflection without collapse. The first step in rebuilding self-respect after failure is acceptance, not approval. Acceptance. You acknowledge what happened. You do not minimize it. You do not dramatize it. You face it honestly. Avoidance delays healing. Honesty begins it. Many people rush to explain failure. They defend. They justify. This keeps attention outward. It avoids learning. Self-respect stays inward. It asks what this experience can teach. This question shifts failure from threat to information. Another important step is releasing shame. Shame attacks identity. It says you are the mistake. Guilt focuses on behavior. It says something did not work. Self-respect keeps these separate. You correct behavior without damaging dignity. Think about a common example. Someone starts a project with excitement. It does not succeed. They feel embarrassed. They withdraw. They stop trying. The failure itself did not stop progress. The meaning assigned to it did. When failure becomes proof of unworthiness, growth stalls. Self-respect reframes failure as part of effort. Every meaningful attempt carries risk. Avoiding failure guarantees stagnation. Another step in rebuilding self-respect is self-compassion. Not self-pity. Self-compassion. You speak to yourself with fairness. You recognize effort. You acknowledge limits. This tone supports recovery. Harsh self-talk after failure delays progress. It creates fear of trying again. Self-respect understands that learning requires safety. There is also value in reviewing the failure calmly. Not immediately, but intentionally. You look at decisions. You identify gaps. You note what you would do differently. This process turns loss into guidance. It is not about regret. It is about clarity. Rebuilding self-respect also involves taking a next step. Not a big one, a realistic one. Action restores trust. Even small movement signals resilience. It tells your mind you are not stuck. Self-respect grows through follow-through. Another challenge after failure is comparison. You look at others. You measure yourself harshly. This adds pressure. It removes context. Everyone fails. Most just hide it. Self-respect remembers this truth. Failure also tests patience. You want quick recovery. You want confidence to return immediately. Healing takes time. Rushing creates frustration. Consistency creates stability. There is a story many people recognize. A person failed publicly. They felt exposed. For months they avoided visibility. They questioned their ability. When they slowly returned to effort, confidence rebuilt naturally. Not from success alone, from courage. Courage is not absence of fear. It is action in spite of it. Rebuilding self-respect requires allowing yourself to be human. Human means imperfect. Human means learning. Self-respect does not demand flawlessness. It demands honesty and effort. Another important aspect is forgiveness. Forgiving yourself does not erase responsibility. It releases paralysis. You forgive to move forward, not to forget. Self-respect understands this distinction. You can hold yourself accountable without remaining trapped. Failure also clarifies values. It shows what matters. It reveals priorities. Use that information. Sometimes failure closes a door. Sometimes it redirects you. Self-respect stays open to redirection. As you rebuild, protect your inner dialogue. Speak with steadiness. Avoid labels. You are not broken. You are learning. This perspective changes everything. As this chapter comes to a close, remember this. Failure does not remove your worth. It tests your relationship with yourself. When you respond with respect, failure becomes a teacher, not a judge. And each time you rise with dignity, self-respect strengthens. Not because you avoided falling, but because you stood back up. Chapter 13. Living with quiet confidence. Quiet confidence does not announce itself. It does not seek attention. It does not compete for validation. It simply exists. Quiet confidence is the natural result of self-respect practiced over time. It grows from consistency, from alignment, from trust in yourself. Many people associate confidence with volume, with dominance, with certainty in every situation. That is not confidence. That is performance. Quiet confidence feels different. It is calm. It is steady. It does not rush to prove anything. When you live with quiet confidence, you no longer need to impress. You no longer need to explain yourself constantly. You show up as you are. Quiet confidence begins internally. It starts with self-trust. You trust your judgment. You trust your ability to adapt. This trust removes anxiety from decision-making. You decide without overthinking. You act without excessive hesitation. You know you will handle the outcome. Another sign of quiet confidence is comfort with silence. You do not fill every pause. You do not rush to speak. Silence no longer feels threatening. It feels grounded. People often mistake this calm for disinterest. In reality, it is presence. Quiet confidence also changes how you listen. You listen fully. You do not prepare responses while others speak. You are not trying to win. You are trying to understand. This creates deeper connection. Another important aspect is emotional regulation. Quiet confidence does not eliminate emotion. It manages it. You feel anger without exploding. You feel sadness without collapsing. You feel joy without needing approval. Emotions pass through without taking control. Quiet confidence also appears in boundaries. You set them calmly. You do not defend them endlessly. You state what you need. You follow through. Consistency reinforces credibility. There is also humility in quiet confidence. You accept that you do not know everything. You remain open to learning. You do not confuse confidence with certainty. This openness makes growth possible. Quiet confidence shows up in how you handle praise. You accept it without embarrassment. You do not deflect. You say thank you. You move on. You do not need praise to feel worthy. And you do not reject it to appear modest. Balance replaces extremes. Criticism also lands differently. You consider it calmly. You filter it thoughtfully. It does not shake identity. Quiet confidence allows self-validation. You know your effort. You know your values. External opinions become information, not instruction. There is a story that captures this well. A person once felt the need to prove themselves constantly. They spoke often. They reacted quickly. As self-respect grew, behavior shifted. They spoke less. They listened more. People noticed the change, not because it was loud, but because it was stable. That stability attracted respect. Quiet confidence also affects ambition. You still set goals. You still work hard. But urgency fades. You trust timing. You understand that progress compounds. You stop rushing outcomes. This reduces stress. It improves focus. Another important feature is self-acceptance. Quiet confidence does not require perfection. It allows flaws. You stop hiding parts of yourself. This integration reduces inner conflict. Quiet confidence also changes comparison. You notice others' success without feeling threatened. You appreciate without diminishing yourself. There is room for everyone. This mindset creates abundance, not scarcity. Living with quiet confidence also means choosing peace over performance. You do not engage in unnecessary battles. You do not seek to be right at all costs. You value clarity more than dominance. This choice preserves energy. Quiet confidence does not mean passivity. It means intentional action. You speak when it matters. You act when it counts. Presence replaces noise. As you live this way, others may respond differently. Some may feel unsettled by your calm. That is not your responsibility. Quiet confidence is not about changing others. It is about grounding yourself. As this chapter closes, remember this. Quiet confidence is not something you chase. It is something you allow. It grows when you honor your values, when you keep promises to yourself, when you stop performing for approval. And once it is present, it does not need defending. It simply stands. Chapter 14. Making self-respect a daily practice. Self-respect is not a single decision. It is a daily practice. It is built through small choices, repeated consistently, often unnoticed. Many people believe self-respect appears after confidence, or after success, or after life becomes easier. In truth, self-respect comes first. This chapter is about turning insight into habit, because understanding without practice fades. Practice creates change. Daily self-respect begins with awareness. You notice how you speak to yourself. You notice how you respond to stress. You notice what you tolerate. Awareness is not judgment. It is observation. Each day offers moments of choice. You can rush or pause. You can avoid or engage. You can abandon yourself or support yourself. These moments shape identity. One of the simplest daily practices is keeping small promises. You do what you said you would do, even when no one is watching. This builds trust. Trust strengthens self-respect. Promises do not need to be big. Wake up on time. Drink water. Take a short walk. Small follow-through matters. Another daily practice is checking in with your capacity. Before agreeing, before committing, you ask a simple question. Do I have the energy for this? Self-respect allows honest answers. Even when the answer is no, you respond instead of reacting. Daily self-respect also includes how you recover from mistakes. You will slip. You will forget. You will choose poorly, at times. The practice is not perfection. It is repair. You acknowledge the slip. You correct calmly. You continue. This response matters more than the mistake itself. Language is another daily tool. Pay attention to how you describe yourself. Words shape emotion. Replace harsh labels with clear descriptions. Say this needs improvement. Not I am a failure. This keeps dignity intact. Self-respect also shows up in how you use time. Time reflects priorities. You do not need rigid schedules. You need intention. Choose what deserves attention today. Protect it. Distraction erodes self-respect quietly. Focus restores it. Another daily practice is rest. Not collapse. Rest. You stop before exhaustion. You recharge without guilt. Rest supports clarity. Clarity supports better decisions. There is also a daily practice of honesty, with yourself and with others. You speak when something feels wrong. You do not wait until resentment builds. Honesty keeps relationships clean and self-respect strong. Self-respect also includes self-encouragement. You notice effort. You acknowledge progress. You do not wait for external praise. You offer internal recognition. This builds stability. A simple reflection can help. At the end of the day, ask 3 questions. Did I act in alignment today? Where did I support myself? Where can I adjust tomorrow? These questions guide without pressure. Daily self-respect also involves environment. What you consume, what you allow around you. Limit what drains you. Increase what nourishes you. This includes conversations, media, noise. Your environment influences your inner state. Another important practice is patience. Growth does not happen overnight. Self-respect deepens slowly. Impatience creates frustration. Consistency creates trust. Trust creates confidence. There is a story many people experience. They try to change everything at once. They burn out. Then they choose one habit, one boundary, one promise. Progress becomes sustainable. Self-respect prefers small daily actions over dramatic gestures. It is also important to forgive daily. Forgive mistakes. Forgive delays. Forgiveness clears emotional weight. You do not carry yesterday into today unnecessarily. Self-respect lives in the present. It focuses on what you can do now. As days pass, these practices compound. You begin to feel steadier, less reactive, more grounded. Not because life is perfect, but because you are aligned. Making self-respect a daily practice means this. You choose yourself again and again, in small ways, with patience. This choice becomes identity. And over time, self-respect stops feeling like effort. It becomes how you live. Conclusion. Self-respect is not a destination. It is a way of living. It is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is something you choose. Again and again. Throughout this book, you have explored what self-respect truly means, how it shapes your choices, how it affects relationships, work, discipline, and recovery. After failure, one truth connects every chapter. How you treat yourself sets the tone for your life. Self-respect does not remove challenges. It changes how you meet them. You may still feel fear. You may still feel doubt. You may still make mistakes. But you no longer abandon yourself in those moments. You listen. You adjust. You respond with care instead of criticism. This is what growth looks like in real life. Self-respect is quiet. It does not seek approval. It does not need permission. It shows up when you set a boundary, when you tell the truth, when you rest without guilt, when you try again after falling. These moments matter. They shape identity more than any single success. As you move forward, remember this. You do not need to become someone else to deserve respect. You need to honor who you are becoming. Progress will not always feel dramatic. Often it will feel subtle. That subtlety is strength. Choose self-respect in small ways. In daily decisions. In how you speak to yourself. In what you allow and what you release. Over time, these choices create a life that feels steady from the inside. Not perfect, but honest. Not loud, but grounded. If you ever lose your way, return to the basics. Pause. Listen inward. Act with clarity. Self-respect will meet you there. And when you live from that place, life does not become easier. It becomes more aligned. That alignment is the real reward. This is not the end of the practice. It is the beginning of living.